Good day, everyone. Hi, Ma'am Pati. Good afternoon. Um, Good afternoon also, my classmates sa Philosophy of Advanced Philo. So, I'll be presenting today my topic. It's all about Karl Jasper's philosophy on man. So, according to Jasper, uh, philosophy grew in me through my finding myself in the midst of life itself. So during that time when he was writing, it was the time of World War II. Actually, originally, Karl Jasper was a psychiatrist. He is a psychologist, a medical practitioner, and also a lawyer before he shifted into a philosophy. Why philosophy? Because of his experiences during World War, um, experiencing difficulties, hardships, and uh, a lot more. So he learned how to write. He shifted into philosophy. So the basic questions of philosophy was a formulated by Kant, which goes first, what can I know? Second, what shall I do? Third, what may I hope? And lastly is, what is man? So for Jasper, these questions are too traditional. It talks about epistemology, metaphysics, and cosmology. But Jasper simplified these questions into what is science? What is truth? What is communication? How can we communicate with others? So these are the questions that Jasper wanted to answer. So I want to focus on the fourth question that goes, what is man? So what is really man? What makes a man a man? So a lot of philosophers ask these questions, but for Jasper, he defines or gives characteristics or shall I say equivalent to a man. First, he names the man as existence. So existence, it's uh, maybe in German language is this. So as existence, he uses this word existence. In his book during World War II, he wrote a book entitled Psychology on the World Views. So that book was originally wanted to express or scientific belief on psychology. It was all about psychology, but surprisingly, he touches the realm of philosophy. So he mentioned about man that is equivalent to what he calls existence. So, in his own words, he said, it is an outline of the potentialities of the soul which holds a mirror up to man to show him what he can be, what he can achieve, and how far he can go. So, such insights are meant as an appeal to freedom. So, let me choose in my inner action what I really want. So, that is the words coming from Karl Jasper about existence. So existence for him, it is be infinitely open to the new possibilities of man to understand the self and its being. So it is our self, our openness to other possibilities. It is inaccessible to traditional philosophy, or it cannot be defined. But for him, it can be clearly experienced, can lived, and communicated. So for him, that is what he calls existence. Man is an existence. That is his word. Okay. So the second one is okay. So existence is also the real and valuable or the authentic in man, the true self of a man. It is the genuine self, the experience of the total freedom that defines man. And it is also called the eternal in man. So some commentators, some understanding, or some interpreters would attribute this existence to uh, soul. For them, it is a soul that maybe Jasper won't call it soul, but in his own term, he calls it existence. But for many interpreters, commentators who read the books of Jasper, so they attributed the existence as the soul because it cannot be defined. We cannot see it, and yet it is the genuine self. It is the real and valuable of the man, and it is the eternal in man. So there's no other being or attributes that we can think of. It's only the soul, which is the eternal in man. So second is man as a free being. So he gives more emphasis on freedom. For freedom is the central or the center of man's life. So being as an existence, the existence per se, the man as we are, we cannot call as man without freedom. Just like in computer, there is what we call CPU. So the CPU or the computer cannot work out without the CPU, the central processor unit. So for Jasper, our freedom is the center of our lives. It leads to the importance of making a choice. It is always a choice, which moral responsibility sits in. So because we have freedom, we are free being, we choose. We choose from this one or the other. And in exercising our freedom, responsibility follows. It is also identified with choice, awareness, and selfhood. And more importantly, for Jasper, freedom is not just observing it. I have freedom. I own it. I own it. I have it. But for Jasper, it is all about acting on it. We have to practice, we have to exercise our freedom rather than observing. And it is also knowing and using our freedom is the reason of the illumination of existence. So knowing our freedom, we are aware that we are free is to enlighten our true being, ourself. Although man as existence, as the first definition, has freedom, total freedom. Yet, for Jasper, it is still limited by what he calls impenetrable boundaries or boundary situations of his existence. To experience these boundaries and to exist are one and the same. So to live authentically is to confront these boundaries and limits, to accept, to live, and to bear with them. So man as we are, as existence, who has a total freedom, and yet we are limited. We are bound to something, to any situations. So the third definition or characteristics or an equivalent of man for Jasper is man is a finite being. So what is this called finite? So a defining characteristics of man is his finitude, our imperfection, our limitations, which he experienced barriers as the limits to his existence. So we exist. Yes, it is true we exist. And yet we cannot exist forever. So one bad barrier or boundaries is what he calls death. So everyone, all of us will die someday. Sooner or later, all of us will die. And for Jasper, death is the most dramatic, we say dramatic, murabag buhi. So these barriers that causes anxiety, we are anxious, stressed, we cannot live peacefully because of this reality, death. But somehow it is also give us, or it can also give us an urgency to live authentically without postponement. So I remember um, during All Souls Day, I was uh, attending a mass, and our parish priest has a homily with regards to life. So he said that uh, our life is A B no B C D. So B is what he calls birth. Okay, so and D is our death. So birth, death. So what is in between of the two? Birth and death. So there is what we call letter C. So what is that letter C? So between birth and death is choice. So it is our choice how to live our life. So when we say choice, we have to practice our freedom. We have to use it for without using, if we fail to use our freedom, then guilt sets in. Because man has a total freedom. And from that fact that man is a has a total freedom. So the second barriers or limits of man's existence is what he calls guilt. And I remember one of his book that is entitled um, "The Questions of the German Guilt." So maybe he wanted to attribute this that book to the German authority because he experienced war, and he questioned why the Nazi during that time, the Nazi are very cruel. During the Holocaust, a lot of Jews were killed, murdered. So Jasper questioned that where is the guilt of the Germans? So guilt is man's um, feeling that he is guilty of something. So it limits man's freedom. Why? Because if he chooses the first choice and for him it doesn't satisfy, so what comes in his mind is, I could have chosen otherwise. I could have chose the other. I could have chose the better. So that that makes the man guilty. So it cannot be removed. It cannot be removed for Jasper. And the third one is what we call situationality or the human condition. It is partially thrust and partially chose ourselves into a particular human condition. So we wanted to be an American, but we cannot because we are Filipino, and that is the situationality, our human condition as a Filipino. Whether we like it or not, we are a Filipino. We are born in this country. We are born Catholic. We are born poor, and uh, we cannot choose in the first place that we will be in that place, in that situation, in that environment, because that is the given to us. That is given to us, and as human, that is why we have freedom. We have um, this so-called freedom to choose to accept our human condition or to overcome uh, that human condition. For example, a lot of Filipinos went to America. Why? Because they want to be an American. They want to be a rich. They want to have a better life. And what they what they do? Sa may gibuhat nila, di ba? Naningkamot. They strive harder and harder para makuha to get what they wanted in life. So, for Jasper, that is what we call our boundaries, our limitations. And some other boundaries or limitations that he calls is chances, sufferings, conflict, maybe diseases, illness. So those are uh, boundaries or limitations that exist together with our existence. And what we can do is to choose to accept it, to overcome it, or to embrace it so that we can have an authentic life. So when man reflects on his freedom, he experiences as a gift. He realizes that he does not stand alone. By accepting, by realizing that man is free. So I realize, yes, I am free, I can choose. Even if I am born in North Korea, but I can choose to eat or not to eat. I can choose to do this or do that without uh, without knowing the laws of North Korea, but still they can do what they want. Not that really total freedom that the democracy countries has, but for me, freedom is a gift. So that gift points vaguely to an ultimate horizon, and that is the source and foundation of that freedom. So that what he calls transcendence. So Jasper equates man so as the transcendence and the encompassing. So transcendence for them is a lot of commentators also would attribute that this transcendence is what Jaspers called the God. So when when we reflect our freedom, we experience as a gift. So it is a gift. So who give this gift? The question is who give this gift, and he calls it the transcendence. And transcendence is also the awareness that originates from consciousness as being imperfect, as being finite. And by recognizing our finitude, by recognizing our boundaries and limits, we recognize that there is infinite possibilities within us, the godly aspect in us, that what he calls transcendence, more than what we are. So transcendence alone is the real being according to Jasper. So for many commentators, interpreters, he attributed it as the real being or the God. So man is directed to God. We always directed to God because we are free. We have freedom. We are finite. So there is someone who gave us the freedom. And the ultimate and indefinite limits of being, as we experience the fullness and richness, such limits surround, envelope, and suffuse all that there is what he calls the encompassing. The ultimate and indefinite limits, indefinite without ending. There's no limit, indefinite limits of being as we experience the fullness and richness. It is called the encompassing. He also coined the term being as such. Encompassing means being as such. The totality of being as it is thought, conceived, or conceptualized. It always makes its presence known, which does not appear itself, but from which everything comes to us. So this encompassing is an abstract. It is the perfection. It is our satisfaction. Maybe we can call it the heaven. Our satisfaction within us. The totality of being. The completeness of everything. So he calls it the encompassing. So man is the encompassing that we are. Yet even as the encompassing, man splits. We become aware of the encompassing that we are in four ways. First, man lives in his world. Second, as thinking consciousness being. Generally, he is searchingly oriented towards objects. As existence, as a spirit, he shapes the idea of a whole in his world existence. And lastly, as possible existence, he is related to transcendence through which he knows himself as given to himself in his existence. And therefore, for Jasper, transcendence means man's personal devotion and committed effort to reach the encompassing. So it is the way, the path to reach the encompassing, the completeness, the totality of everything is what he calls the transcendence. So before I end this presentation, from Jasper, he quote, and it goes, man is always something more than what he knows of himself. He is not what he is simply once and for all, but he is a process. He is not merely an existent life, but he is within that life, endowed with possibilities through the freedom he possesses to make of himself what he will by the activities on which he always decides. Thank you, and to God be the glory. Thank you, man.